It's so great to be here. I got to clarify the record here. Val accused me of being a football player, and I was actually a place kicker. There's a huge difference because the only position that was going to work for me is if they touched me, they throw a flag. And I thought, yeah, that's something I can do. My biggest concern moving forward is the lack of fiscal discipline in Washington, D.C. And I'm not trying to be just trite about that. It's an easy thing to say. It's an easy talking point. But here's the reality. The reality is our federal budget, if you look at it as a percentage of our gross domestic product, is now roughly 25%. That is, 1 out of every $4 that's spent in this country is spent by the federal government. Typically, it's been 19 to 20%. And I think if I sat down with you for a half hour and walked through the math, I bet you and I would agree that it probably should be at about 16%. That's really what it ought to be. Now, we have a $2.7 trillion budget, and we're more than $12 trillion in debt. Okay? We are spending about $660 million a day on just our interest payments. We don't get anything for that. That's just our interest payment. We will be paying nearly $1 billion a day in interest by the end of the year. Over the last 4 years, just 48 months, we have raised the debt ceiling 5 times by $3.65 trillion. The numbers are just so unbelievable. One of the biggest fears that I have is that the valuation of the dollar is probably the single greatest threat to the United States of America and their quality of life than there is anything else out there. And I don't think I'm alone in that. I'll share something with you that I told only a few audiences. When I was a freshman member of Congress, we were invited over to the Pentagon. 18 of us went over to visit with Secretary Gates and the Joint Chiefs. They gave us a briefing about kind of world affairs and how we were organized militarily, and it was fascinating discussion. Right at the end of the 30 minutes, I was sitting in the front row, and Secretary Gates said, just kind of out of the blue, he said, "Do you want to know what keeps me up at night?" "Yeah." "Secretary of Defense, what do you lose sleep about?" He said, "It's the Chinese with $1 trillion in treasury notes, because there's nothing I can do about that. Nothing." We have put our country in peril and our future in other people's hands because we have lacked the fiscal discipline over the last several decades to maintain a reasonable level of spending. You have to sit back and say, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? And from its most basic of framework, you've got to look at it and say, well, we've got to cut spending, but we also have to raise revenues. And I can offer you a whole slew of things of where we're going to have to make some difficult cuts. In just the last 18 months, okay, the number of federal employees earning $150,000 or more as their base compensation, not benefits, not their health care insurance, just their base compensation. The number of people earning $150,000 or more in the last 18 months has doubled. More than doubled. Went from roughly 30,000 people, this does not count the military, by the way, more than 30,000 people to over 66,000 federal employees earning that much money. And if you look at the number of people earning $100,000 or more as a federal employee, that number has grown by 50% to nearly 350,000 people. How many jobs can you think of that would deserve a 6-figure salary working for the federal government? Like seriously, can you come up with hundreds of thousands of them? I really do believe we're going to have to make some dramatic cuts and say, you know what, we're going to have a 10% across the board payroll cut. Not for each individual, but for each department. We're going to have to take things like the federal payroll and say, sorry, we're going to have to make some trims here. And if that means having less people, or maybe middle or upper management taking some cuts, we're going to have to make those kind of difficult decisions. I believe we ought to lower the capital gains tax down to 10%. I believe we should look at the corporate income tax, which is the second highest in the world. I'd much rather have a flat 10% tax for corporate income. We're at 38, 39%. Taking it down to 10% would be the type of game changer that I think would attract capital to the United States. We need to remember that in this country, manufacturing is good. Manufacturing is good. We don't have an atmosphere right now where major capital would want to make an infrastructure investment to build a new manufacturing facility. We don't have a tax code or environmental regulation that's conducive to having a major new manufacturing facility built pretty much anywhere. But I think what you're seeing in the country today is an unrest and an uneasiness, a dissatisfaction with the track that our government is going on now. That's not exclusive to a frustration with the Democrats. There's also a great deal of frustration with the Republicans as well. Remember, I ran on the platform that the Republicans had the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and they blew it. And so this is a bipartisan challenge, but it's also a bipartisan opportunity, because I think ultimately the country, when they voted for change, they wanted a change in approach. They didn't want more of the same, and I think what they've seen, at least over the last 12 months, is a lot more of the same. How many times have you heard President Obama say, the deficit we inherited? Well, you just made it 4 times bigger. Okay? That's not exactly the change that America was hoping for. You know, I got to have that interaction with the president a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was. What an honor. That's truly a great thrill. And you know, afterwards I got to talk to the president, and I said, hey, thanks. I'm not just going to take pot shots at you. And he was laughing and smiling, and he said, no, Phil, who's his legislative director, he said, no, Phil says great things about you. He said, in fact, when we were riding up here, Phil was giving me a list of people that we could work with, and you were on that list. So I look forward to working with you. Wow, we've come a long way in 12, 13 months. So it's truly an honor. And I thank you for allowing me to serve, and hopefully do so with the respect and that you deserve, and the type of approach that is appreciated. But my job is to represent Utah to Washington, not Washington to Utah. So your ideas, suggestions, thoughts, they're very much appreciated and really needed in order to thrive. So.